Thank you, Steve.
Maybe on? That's on. That's on. It's on? It's on. All right. We're on. So I have a lot to get to because I have to confess I'm a long time. I go back to the very first days of Slate. I remember interviewing Michael Kinsley about the original model.
Can you guys hear us?
Yep, you're on, Steve. You're on.
Am I on? Okay. So let's get this just the state of Slate. In terms, let's start with audience. Where are you in audience? What's your reach? What's your growth pattern?
So the state of Slate, that's actually a management meeting we have once a month, the state of Slate.
Oh, good.
So our audience is bifurcated, right? As we look at growing, what we've decided is, there are two kind of important platforms for us, or mediums, if you will. It's text, it's the written word, and it's podcasting. We're a premium publisher, and what we know is that, fluent, educated people still read, thank God. And so text is important, so we are committed to that. And then premium kind of educated people also listen to podcasts. Podcast is growing. This is something we're investing in. You can't have it all, and so this has been at the expense for us of video. We made a decision several years ago that video was too expensive. We couldn't monetize it. We're too small. We just never would ever win. And we looked at the numbers, and we made a decision to walk away from video almost exclusively, and take that money and put that into podcasting, where we really see our growth, in the written word. So we're growing in both those platforms. Our audio audience will do about 150 million downloads over 25 podcasts this year. Mm-hmm. Our text audience is bouncing back a little bit. We got hit in the head by Facebook, like a lot of people did. Not nearly as bad as I think as some. We were moving away from it at the end of last year when we kind of knew it was going to happen. But both of those audience segments are growing.
Is this a reach play or an audience quality play?
I would say it's a premium scale play, right? And so we're not running after scale for scale's sake, because a premium audience is that's how we define ourselves. So we're not running after scale, but we want to get as big as we can while still, kind of delivering a premium audience.
Let's give everybody a quick update on our understanding of the ownership structure of Slate, because you started as a pet product years ago with Michael at the Microsoft campus.
We did.
Then eventually became part of the Washington Post campus.
Exactly.
Where are you now in terms?
So 22 years ago, for those of you who don't know, Microsoft created Slate with Kinsley. 7 or 8 years ago, the Washington Post bought that from Microsoft. And then when Bezos came in and bought the Washington Post, he took that, and the holding company of the Post was called Graham Holdings. So Graham Holdings now owns Slate. They own Social Code. They own Panoply. They own Kaplan. They own about 20 television stations and like lumber companies. I mean, they're just like this big conglomerate ownership structure.
So I want to talk about, start with the strategy in terms of the mix of revenue streams and how they've shifted. What are the major revenue streams? Sort of go through the major revenue streams for Slate right now, but particularly how they've evolved, say, in the last year or two.
Yeah, I mean, this is, for those of you that are in like the business of journalism, business of news, it's like an oxymoron. This is freaking hard. Like, we're bringing a knife to a gunfight every single day. We heard this morning, we don't have a ton of first-party data. We have a subscription business. It's a very, very profitable business for us, but it's not at scale. So we don't have a lot of first-party data. I said before, we've kind of chosen to walk away from video, and video is kind of the hot thing out there these days. It affects not only direct sales, but it affects a lot of your private stuff that you can do in your programmatic side. So it's, so it is hard, but it's really important. Like, we at Slate, it's fairly mission-driven. It is really important, I think, for us to figure out how to make journalism and make the news a self-sustaining business. Really important is for free press, really important for our democracy, like just really important for our country. And so this is what we think about a lot at Slate. I think probably a lot of publishers think about this. Like, we need to be able to figure out a way to make money. So what we're trying to do is to try not to be too precious. I think that there's not one size fits all. There's not one answer. We say all the time at Slate, you have to pull a lot of levers, but you have to make sure you don't try to pull them all, right? So, I talked about our text business. We monetize that both from a direct standpoint, but also from a programmatic standpoint, and we do that really aggressively, and I think well. And then we're going pretty hard into our audio business. Our audio business, I don't know if you've got that chart I sent you, but our audio business it'll represent 28% of our business this year, top line. It's a very profitable business for us. I mean, like probably all of you, I'm doing my budget right now for next year. It'll be 35%, 36% of my business next year. It's a big part of our business for us. And the reason that we're running after that is twofold. Or threefold, I guess. One, because it's growing. So, we want the wind in our sails. Two, because it delivers a premium audience, and that is important to us. But three, because we think we can win at it. We've been doing podcasting for 15 years. We have those muscles. We know how to do it. We can do it. We do it well. And there's some things that we could have run after that are kind of hot out there right now that we didn't have a lot of muscles at, that probably we wouldn't do very well, or it would take us a lot of money and time to figure it out. And by that time, it'd be, the next big thing would be up, and we'd be dead.
Let me okay, so audio at around a third.
Yeah.
Said, okay, where's display? Display and programmatic, how much of a share is that giving you?
So our programmatic business, 41%.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Does that mean, what formats? Are you doing it yourself? Are you working with partners? I see a lot of Taboola.
We just did a deal with Taboola. Yep. Put them down at the bottom of the page. Listen, they're a great partner. We make a lot of money at Taboola. I have a little bit of a different perspective than some of the other folks in my org. I think that the user is very used to that kind of thing. I think that they have seen it forever. I don't think it puts them off at all. I think we put it at the bottom of the page, and we have a lot of data that shows not a ton of people get to the bottom of the page. So from a user experience, it didn't worry me at all. Taboola is a great partner. We are working for them. They are working for us. I think that kind of third-party player is just one lever you can pull in your programmatic business to make it really, to support the text business. The other thing that we're doing, or that we're seeing in our programmatic business, I mean, we do what everybody does. We're watching our competition, the header, all the time, and we're looking at our ad logic all the time. We're doing all of that kind of thing. But what was I going to say? Our private business. And so our private business is tripled, maybe quadrupled this year, year over year. And what we thought was going to happen is that our guaranteed business was going to go up. And in fact, our PMP business is what's really growing. I think because we don't have video, that guaranteed business, I think, is growing for people who do have video for us. But PMP business is good business for us. It's guaranteed business. It's decent CPM.
Why? Why did it increase that much? What made that work?
Well, I think the marketplace is looking for safe environments. The marketplace is looking for audience that is premium, that they can buy in and know they can get.
Now, you've pulled back. You mentioned video pulling back. I want to drill into that a little bit. Why video was not a fit for you, where it seems to be a fit and seems to be something that so many others are chasing after?
So it was way too expensive for us, at least. Listen, I came from a place where you could create video to teach women how to put on mascara, braid her hair, put on eyeliner, whatever, and that video had a long tail, it lasted forever, it was cheap to do, and that video, I think, can be monetized really, really well. Also in the food business, I think if you can do it efficiently, also that video has a long tail and you can make money on it for a long, long time. The video that we do, it's usually topical, and it doesn't have a long tail, it's pretty expensive to do, and it didn't pencil out at all. I mean, it not only didn't pencil out, like when we really, when we had our journalists, when we looked at how much it really cost us versus how much we made, it was really shocking. Now listen, it's hard though too, because a journalist wants to be able to use every medium to talk to their either users or listeners, their viewers in every way possible, and so it's. So I was talking about in terms of having to make hard decisions and prioritizing where you can't pull every lever. That was a lever it was really hard for us to walk away from, because the folks who did watch our video, and we still had quite a few, loved it and they were engaged. And it was a great medium for a journalist to explain something, tell a story, get somebody to understand something. So it was, to make those decisions, to have to say no to this in order to, invest in another medium, I think it was hard. Now,
how about custom advertising? That's another one that you revised
We did a little
take
bit.
On.
Yeah, so we did a little bit. Everybody's doing custom now. Custom is another thing that's hard to make money in, I think. Everybody is running after custom. Custom is a low-margin business for most people. I know it is for us. So we do it. We do it well. When people want us to do it, we do it to help drive big deals. We're learning and getting a lot smarter on the other end in terms of arbitrage and trying to push eyeballs to our custom business in order to deliver something the customer wants. Our custom business is very much flipped. We still do a bunch of written word custom, but a lot of what we do now is audio custom. Mm-hmm. So I think we did 9 custom podcasts this year for customers. And that's something, again, when I talk about something that we embraced audio because we think we could win. That's something that we kind of got ahead of. A lot of people are doing it now, but we've been doing it for several years. And so that's a lot of the custom we're doing right now. Yeah.
Let's talk about, I want to drill into some of these individual streams a little bit more to get into some of the detail about why they're working. I don't want to go past Slate Plus too much because I know that I want you to characterize it again, but also tell me what you've learned about both making paid content grow and acquisition, but also what its ceiling is and why.
So Slate Plus, for those of you who don't know, that's our sub business, $50 a year, $5 a month. It is an important business for us. The gentleman before talked about cohort analysis, and that's what we do a lot of. We look at an LTV. We look at what's driving the Slate Plus members. We look at where they come from the website. We look at where they come from a platform standpoint. We look at what kind of content they come from, and the folks who come from certain types of content on Slate.com convert at a better way than others. But the biggest thing that we've learned is that by far, 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 our best conversion asset in that LTV is podcasting. So we put a bunch of podcasts behind our wall for our Slate Plus members. We create podcasts only for our Slate Plus members, and that from a conversion kind of tool standpoint has been a really, really important part of our conversion. And now every time we look at a podcast to figure out what kind of revenue is driving and how much it's costing us. Same with newsletters. He said a really important thing, I think, this morning, too. It doesn't matter how many newsletters you download. It matters how many people open it and then what you're driving off that open. And those metrics that you drive off those opens, it's how much traffic you're driving, and that way you can figure out how much programmatic revenue you're making. It's what kind of ads you can put on the page. But it's also how many Slate Plus members we can sign up off that newsletter. And so there's 3 metrics that we're continually kind of adding up to figure out what is efficient and what is smart in terms of what we do.
Can you tell us numbers? How many subscribers you have, what the growth has been, what share is coming from paid?
Yeah, I mean, Slate Plus is growing about 30% a year over year. So, but it's still small, especially when you look at the Times and the Post and those guys. But it's a decent business for us. It accounts for 8% of our top line. Mm-hmm. So, it's good.
And how about conversion rates? How much of your audience is actually in Slate Plus as opposed to
tiny amount?
Tiny amount.
Which is why we think, we have 20 million uniques a month, and we have real opportunity.
And that pricing structure, that's relatively low compared to a lot of other premiums. Where did you come up? How have you settled on that as being the right price for this product?
So again, I think that I differ a teeny bit with some of my colleagues at Slate, but we break some news, but we really don't break the news. We're an analysis and commentary site, and so we have a great engaged audience who love us. I'm not sure that the value proposition of Slate. I think it has a bit of a ceiling in terms of people who will pay for it if we're not breaking news all the time. If you're not, the expectation with the Times and the Journal and the Post is that these guys, I need to be there. They're breaking news all the time. I need to be there. And I'm not sure there's as much of an urgency coming to Slate. I think folks see the news and then come to Slate because they want to understand it. And they want to really understand it. And so that urgency, and I hope I'm wrong, but that urgency I think maybe will put a bit more of a ceiling on our content in terms of paid versus some of the newsbreakers.
No, I agree, and I think this is an important distinction to make as we think about what the limits of paid content are. It does have to do with your relationship to that particular medium and the value you ascribe to it. And yes, there's a key difference. But in Slate, you're paying to be among your cohort.
Kind of, exactly, yeah. But so that said, though, one of the things I felt that 100% coming into Slate. One of the things I learned, though, is that because our podcasts hold such a value proposition to these users, that's a tool that we can use over and above kind of our written word and whether we're breaking news. I don't know if you've ever heard of Slow Burn. Slow Burn is it's a podcast we came out with, the second season this year, and it was a huge success. It went up to #1 in iTunes, and much more of a success, honestly, than we had expected. We were lucky, but it's also great content. But we created that for our Slate Plus members originally. And so that was created just for the folks behind the wall. And then we realized, wow, this is really, really good. And then once we gave it a peek outside, bam, it went like crazy. So the more that we can create, the more value we can create in different kind of pieces of content to drive that Plus membership, that's what we're experimenting with.
And I think an important piece here as we're going through these different revenue streams is how they become interdependent.
Right.
They're not separate revenue streams that are just adding up to a whole, but they are things like the podcast, like your programmatic business and the data you're getting from that is really helping to drive the subscription business. The podcasting is very much related to the subscription business and vice versa. And then we're going to get to events too, which is a part of this. But I want to drill into podcasting because since that's your area of key growth, it's a challenging, wonderful channel for me. I've been in it from the beginning, and I honestly do remember interviewing Michael back in '95,
we've been doing it for 15, 16 years. Yeah.
Him saying, we can put audio on the site. That is so great. And Slate was early in on this. I think you guys were doing this early on. But I want to talk about how it becomes a business and what you've learned about making it into a business. How does it work economically in terms of what does it take to make this profitable?
So, excuse me. So first and foremost, it takes good content, right? You have to create stuff that people will listen to. It's a toggle for us. You know, when we look at creating new, at least, it's a toggle between, you know, what is journalistically important and what we think is important to create for users and listeners, but also what we think can be commercially viable. And so we're always looking at it with those two filters. Sometimes we'll create stuff that is not commercially viable because it's important as journalistic, you know, venture to do. And then a lot of other times we'll look at something and say, hey, listen, we're known for, you know, our tech and business voice. Let's go find the hole in the space in tech and business podcasting that we feel like we could create great audio that we can also make a commercial success. We've got 4 studios in our office in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. We've got 2 down in Washington. So it takes some investment at first, for sure. The other thing that we do decently well, because we've done it for so long, is a lot of our print journalists, or text journalists, I should say, do a lot of our podcasting. That's hard sometimes because a lot of them want to do it. Some of them are better than others. But they bring a voice and an understanding that is Slate to the podcasting that I think is differentiating, and I think is what's made some of our podcasts really good. But the frustrating part of it for now is there's really just one revenue stream, separate from how we lever them for Slate Plus, which is advertising. It's still pretty good, it's a high CPM advertising. It's bifurcated between direct response and brand. The brand guys are now coming in a really aggressive way and have been for the last 18 months. It used to be 80% of this business was driven by the ZipRecruiters and the Blue Aprons of the world, which are great partners. But brands are now coming into it in a really aggressive way, which is fun. It's great to be a consultative brand in that space, to come in and teach brands, you know, how best practices, how to use audio in a way that is smart. But it is a advertising-driven medium for now. I will tell you though, one of the reasons we also are investing in that is that there's a lot of money out there being thrown in the audio space. There are a bunch of companies there trying to create subscription models. There's a lot of companies there that are buying IP. You know, so there's a lot of revenue streams around audio right now that we don't see in text right now. So besides just the ad stuff, I think that there's a tail that in the next 2 or 3 years anyway is going to be really, really important for us.
Okay, I want to get to that. I want to get to the actual monetization and the formats. Let's talk about. I mean, it's a limited inventory. It's a format that's basically host reads, or now we're seeing some programmatic inserts. What are the formats that you're using? What's proven successful? Tell us about things like ad load, ad rates, to make this a profitable business.
Yeah. So ad rates are still really, really good, mostly because the brand guys are coming into it now. We do mostly host reads at Slate in our network. That is proven. If you look at all the data, host reads are much more effective. We still dynamically insert a lot of our host reads. So a lot of people get a little confused and they hear of dynamic insertion and they think that is still not a live host read. It is in fact a host read. It's not live, but if you insert it professionally, it will sound live. So we do most of that host reads because that's important. The other way to do it, though, is just to put in a recorded ad. It's not nearly as effective, but you can get more scale. Right now what's happening in podcasting is there are premium publishers like us, but then there are a lot of folks who are just running after huge scale. And host reads are hard to do at huge scale. And so that is our sister company, Panoply, we created out of Slate about 4 years ago when we saw the opportunity to create a scalable network versus we always knew we wanted Slate to be premium. And so Panoply and Slate, both owned by Graham Holdings, we just announced a couple of weeks ago that Panoply would, they have about 250 shows in their network. They're going to stop selling all of their advertising red product, and they're just going to go, they're just basically running after an audience-based model. I say programmatic's really not programmatic, but they're the first company that's plugged into Nielsen, so they've got a DMP. They now can sell across audience targeting. It's IP-based address, so this room understands the limitations in that, but at least in this marketplace right now, one of the biggest frustrations in audio is that there's not a lot of data to it. 70% goes through Apple. A lot of people, there's just not a lot of data. That's giantly annoying for everybody. So I think it's a little bit of a statement about the audio market right now and about podcasting is that Panoply has seen the ability to, they're not going to sell anything else. They're not going to go sell host reads. They're not going to sell recorded reads. They're trying to create, or they're going to market rather with a very singular strategy, which is come by across our network through Nielsen audience targeting.
But they also decided to become a tech company rather than a content company. They stopped all of their content.
No, this is my exact point.
Their content. So does that reveal an underlying challenge right now or problem for podcasting that we're in a glut of content, that one of its main providers decided to pull out of making content?
So I actually think it says the opposite. I think what it does is it says, like, look at the digital marketplace 8 or 10 years ago. I mean, all of a sudden, ad networks came, and there was a run after scale, and then it was a run after scale with targeting. That's exactly what's happening in podcasting right now in the very beginning. They have seen the opportunity to be the first one to be a tech company to come in and sell targeted audience around what they hope will be a big scalable proposition. So I think it's the opposite. I think that they're looking at what happened in digital 10 years ago, and people. Not everybody wants scale, but some people do, right? And so they're going to create a proposition where if you just want scale, you're not giantly concerned about some of the other things that kind of scale in an ad network puts in front of you that maybe you don't love. But there are a lot of folks who just want the scale, and that's what they're running after.
Now, for Slate's own business, did this work is this a hit-driven business where you're really looking for the slow burns and the political gabfests or the real hits that will drive those? We've all heard stories about what the Daily makes per drop, some insane amount that they're charging there. Is this a hit-driven business, especially in a world that's got a glut of podcasting right now? Or is the money coming from a network effect, that you have a portfolio you're selling and cross-promoting against?
So for us, it's a portfolio. I mean, we want hits, and Slow Burn was a hit, but our strategy is not super hit-driven. Political Gabfest has been going on for 13 years. It's a big podcast, but it's a podcast that people have come to expect week in and week out, and so we have a real relationship with our listener. So our strategy is not hit-driven. Our strategy is very portfolio-driven. Come into the Slate portfolio. We're affluent. We're educated. We're super engaged. We've got a lot of numbers to back that up. Do we want some hits? Of course. And Slow Burn was one of them. If we can get a couple more hits in there, it just builds the scale. But I don't want scale for scale's sake. If I had a huge hit about Trump, I couldn't monetize that, very well. And so I don't want, I need focused scale. I don't need scale for scale's sake, because that also is hard to really monetize.
But the portfolio also helps in promotion and discoverability, because discoverability in podcasting absolutely sucks, always has, and there doesn't seem to be an easy answer to it. But when you have a portfolio, you can cross-promote.
And we're super lucky about that. We do have we have 25 of them. So that's, in large part, how I think we grew Slow Burn, is that we put Slow Burn into the feed of 7 of our podcasts that were contextually relevant, and bam, literally the next day.
And the relationship between this now, and I want to pivot to events. I want to leave time for questions, so if you have questions for Charlie, think of them now, but I just have a couple of wrap questions about podcasting and how it interweaves with the other revenue and audience building stream of events. Mm-hmm. Tell us where events are in relation to podcasting and what role they're playing now for you.
So we're kind of transitioning our event business. I'll tell you where it stands now. We do about 30 events a year. They are all live podcasts. And it has historically been a bit of an afterthought on the commerce side. We sell tickets against it, so it's a money-making business for us, though very small. It's not a money-losing business for us, put it that way. It's a promotion business for us. It's great PR. The slow burn guys, Leon is going on a tour starting today and going around to 4 cities in the country. And we'll sell 400 tickets to these events, and it's a great thing for the brand. It gets people kind of excited. Like the super user and the super engaged person just love them. And we sell some signage to them, to some advertisers. We do some custom stuff where if we're doing one of our tech podcasts is live, and we'll bring a tech partner, and they'll do some kind of custom, kind of native thing in the beginning. They'll either open it up, they'll do a quiz or something like that. We're moving our event business a little bit next year to be more focused on, we're going to productize it more, basically. So we're going to do a podcast awards event, and that's going to be pretty big. There's nobody doing that right now. We're going to kind of come in and put a stake in the ground to be like, these are the podcast awards. This is what's the best. This is, very Academy Award-like, maybe not that big. But right now our strategy is it's a PR-based strategy. That if we can drive media dollars with it, we will. But it's not, we don't have an event scale right now where we can go and decide that we're going to put $3 million in it. It's going to be a $10 million business.
But a lot of this evolution from the mid-90s to this evolution from, as Slate was first described and published as a digital weekly magazine. It came out on a given day at a given time. And now we're into a set of revenue streams and audience relationships that are so much more intimate. A lot of the things you're describing that you're succeeding at have to do with that intimacy and that direct, again, that sort of D2C connection
you're
with the audience.
Yeah, it's a very much a relationship with the audience. That's our cost of doing business, right? Is we have to engage a consumer in every platform we have.
Find not just diversity of models, but find those models that are really on brand and enhance that aspect of the brand. Charlie, thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
This was interesting. We have time for questions. Time for questions of Charlie.
Oh, thank you.
Please, just when you have a question,
I got one.
Raise your hand and tell us who you are and who you're with.
My name is Bill Ullman. I work at Smithsonian Media. So, like you, we're not a news organization. We're trying to get people to see a Smithsonian perspective on the world. We publish Smithsonian.com. My question for you, because we're going after the same kind of premium audience. How do you define a premium audience, number one? Like, do you tell your advertisers about them, and what do you tell them? And secondly, how do you know that they're there? And thirdly, what's the relationship between the premium audience and all your other revenue products like Slate Plus?
So our Slate Plus folks are actually the most premium of our audience we found, but we use a bunch of third-party data. We build, we index. We way over-index against, having a third degree against income 150,000 plus, against 500,000 plus assets. Like we look at the ecosystem and we way over-index against the market. And what's nice is that podcasting also, podcasting way over-index against the market, period, right? It skews younger and it skews more affluent. And then our podcasting actually way over-indexes against that index. So we use a lot of third-party data. We do a lot of research against our users in text, but we also do a lot of research against our listeners. Kind of have to, because there's not a lot of syndicated research against podcast listeners right now. Edison will have stuff that talks about the total market, but they don't have it brand specific. So we go in and talk to about 20,000 listeners a year to get an idea of where they stand in terms of demographics and some psychographics.
What metrics are you able to deliver to advertisers off of podcast buys?
So we can do job titles, we can do male-female, we can do geography, we can do affluence. We can put kind of anything we want into the thing that we do every year. It gets a little hard sometimes because we do it also by show, and so sometimes your data won't be it won't be huge if it's a small show, but
You mentioned that host reads. You know that host reads are more effective than inserts. How do you know that?
Because every direct response advertiser you talk to tells us that.
Okay.
Everyone.
Do you have any other questions for Charlie? Yeah, back there.
Thanks, Charles. Bill from ESPN. That was really informative and interesting to see the podcasting aspect and also all the DTC stuff that you're doing. In regards to the audio, what technology are you using to dynamically add insert and to monetize your inventory in the podcasting?
So Megaphone, Panoply, our sister company, they have a CMS called Megaphone, and that's what we use. There's a bunch of them out there. That's what we use. I think that is the best one, but that's the one we use. You guys, you guys have a ton of big podcasts.
We do, and I think that's an area where just monetization, there could be tons of opportunity, and I think my interpretation is I think there's more technology needed to kind of get to where we need to be.
Well, you hinted at some that were coming that you saw. What are some of the models that you see coming that are going to be able to draft off of and monetize this channel better?
Well, so you have the two giant platforms in Spotify and Pandora that are getting into this business in a major way, and they're total frenemies right now. But their podcasting ecosystems, even though they're both big, are very small. But you have a bunch of companies right now that are VC-backed that are coming and paying for content, where they'll come and say, hey, listen, we'd like to have your two podcasts, and we want to put them behind our wall in a paid model. And then it's a decision, right? It's a decision on brand. Do I want to take that show and put it behind a place where a lot less people are going to listen to it, but I'm going to make 4 times the amount of money doing that. And those are the metrics. Like they're paying. You know, this is like pets.com. Like I hope these guys are around in 2 or 3 years, but these guys are paying really a lot of money for content in order to build a subscription model that we all hope is sustainable. We want people to pay for this content, of course.
How about smart speakers? Shouldn't smart speakers be adding an interactive element to podcasting that allows you essentially to interact with the medium in a way that we can't in the usual?
It's adding two things. It's adding great distribution, and so it's driving great volume, but it's absolutely, we have this product called Slate News Quiz, and you can go ask your speaker, hey, I want to do the Slate quiz today. And Mike Pesca, who's one of our journalists, will say, okay, question 1, who won the football game last night? And you say, the Kansas City Chiefs. And Pesca will be like, no, that is definitely wrong. and then you say either move on, tell me the answer, or guess again. And then you can go back and forth like that throughout the whole quiz. So it's super interesting. You're having a real, two-way discussion with the speaker. And
eventually you should be able to tell your podcast, oh, send me some more information about that Casper mattress.
Absolutely, right. Yeah. But it's wild if you kind of think two blocks down the road, like, okay, so if these speakers actually have this kind of great penetration, I could get up in the morning and go down, make a cup of coffee and say, all right, Alexa, read me everything on the front page of the New York Times. And Alexa could read me everything on the front page, which means then how am I going to monetize that as the New York Times? I before monetize that either with ads in the New York Times or ads on digital New York Times and Times.com. But if those folks are now listening, in the Times or in all of us are going to have to figure out a way to monetize that in audio. That is, we're not near that yet, but the penetration of all these speakers is huge.
That's a good place to start because we're actually going to segue into a panel about product development and thinking about media and those new ways of packaging. Yeah. Charlie, thanks.
Steve,
great.